Welcome back to the Tuesday weekend. This week we are talking about portrayals of bars and restaurants in TVs and movies. We've covered most of the movies, though if there are any that we missed, please tell us about it below. But now TV, and I will start with one of my earliest formative memories of what life in a restaurant is like, and that was from a Monty Python sketch called The Dirty Fork. And essentially there's a very nice couple sitting there, and the man happens to mention that the fork is a little dirty, and of course the server prostrates himself and humbly apologizes, and then gets the head server who can't believe that this is happening to, and then gets the manager who comes and sits down, and very just again is remorseful about this fork, and then comes out the chef with a cleaver, of course 6'4" John Cleese with a cleaver. You bastard, slams it at the table. At the time was just like, wow, that kitchen people are crazy. But honestly, now having kind of lived that experience and how some things just get overblown, and it's like, well, I'm glad I didn't mention the knife. Like, I think it's funny. I mean, beyond that, then I guess the first real awareness I had of what bars were came from Cheers, which ran 11 seasons starting in 1982. A really notable cast, a bunch of people who have gone on to do just some fantastic work since, and George Wendt. And sorry,
Okay.
George Wendt. I love you. I love you. I mean, really, the only real negative that I have towards Cheers is it did spawn Frasier, and now we're stuck with Kelsey Grammer and all his glory. So,
And there's another
anyway,
place now.
I know I have not watched a single minute of it.
Man,
But
I
Nick,
watched every Cheers
like,
episode. I mean, I
oh no,
watched it.
no, Cheers I've watched, not
Yeah.
Frasier. That's all.
No, no. I mean, I've
But yeah,
watched the repartee between the customers and the bartender. Excuse me, guests. And
mhm,
like how they're actually out of work friends. Like when they go outside, they actually go and do stuff together. People like, oh yeah, that doesn't happen. And it's like that totally happens.
yep.
You become friends with the people you. I mean, they're in every day. You're working every day. Cheers was fantastic, and like you said, that's a lot of bartenders in my era were really modeling themselves after, well, Sam Malone, except for they drank like a fish and Sam did not drink anything. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, everyone wanted to be
yeah.
that kind of that cool bartender, da da da. And that yeah, right. That Cheers was kind of like seeing that. I was like, that's kind of what I think a bartender does, and that's how a lot of people see a lot of these things. A lot of people see when they go. It's a big thing in the restaurants, especially front of the house. What they expect is what they see on TV.
I will say there have been one or two places that over the course of years, I, I haven't quite gotten I walk in the door and everyone shouts Norm, but kind of close sometimes. And I do really, there's something getting back to the notion of the third place. That's definitely what Cheers represented. That bar was the gathering spot,
Yeah,
the hangout. So I also have been reading, and recently, especially with Gen Z, how drinking is really going down, and in some ways being replaced by legal weed, and in some places microdosing. But overall, just as a generation, they drink less, considerably less than the boomers, who is
yeah.
kind of who
But,
was
but
drinking in when Cheers was out. And then a step down with Gen X, another step down with millennials. So we'll see where. Well, I also at the same time, and we haven't had a show about this yet, but marijuana lounges are soon to become a real thing in Nevada. So hey, maybe that's what the third place becomes. But anyway, moving on to just another bar comedy, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which uh, isn't super so much about bar life. It's about a group of friends that it's almost the coffee shop and friends. It's like that just happens to be their hangout, and it's a bar. I mean, sure, there are some bar specific things, but it's a funny show. If you enjoy that kind of humor, you're gonna love it. But I'm not sure there are a lot of lessons for bartenders or patrons to be gleaned particularly from the
no,
show.
no. And the one thing about that show is, and this is one that I think a lot of people realize, and when they watch it, it's like, how does that bar even stay open? And then you apply that to real life, and you're like, how is that bar open?
Yeah,
I go in there, and
right.
there's never more than 3 people in there. The place is never
Yeah.
clean. The people who work there are rather sketchy, on the very minimum sketchy. Like that's the best person working there, and everyone else is much worse.
Yep.
And you're like, and
Yep.
how is that place still open?
How are you
That,
still
that
open? Yeah.
that's always sunny in Philadelphia. I've never understood how their bar is still open. They give away, they drink more than they sell.
It's for plot convenience
Yes.
because, well, every once in a while, then the bar can get shut down, and then they celebrate the reopening. Um, all right, but then moving on. Well, actually, I'll keep it in the front of house real quick. Two Broke Girls,
Yeah.
a comedy running 6 seasons starting in 2011. Honestly, this was right about around the time that I stopped owning a television, so I've seen clips here and there, but I've never really sat down and watched it.
Kat Dennings was the lead, and she is comedically very, very gifted. The show, of course, is, you know, it's an over the top sitcom where the servers say stuff to guests that you would never imagine saying to guests, except for the fact that, yeah, people actually, as servers, myself included, do say stuff to guests like that. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. It's a funny show. It's kitschy. They still serve the food. They still treat everyone right. It's funny. It is very funny. I mean, it's a
Sure.
sitcom.
Yeah.
You're working in a small little coffee shop diner type of thing, and that's about it. And there's always the outside. How do we make this money? How do we do this? How do we do that? And then there's always the schemes that everyone comes up with, or somebody shows up to work drunk. That always happens at some job at some point in time. Literally every
Yeah.
year. Yeah, and like Beth Beers is the other actress in it, and they're both you see them in everything now, and that kind of kick started their careers. But it's something a lot of people saw, and it's funny that you'll get guests. You're like, oh, you're kind of witty like this show, and that's when I hear someone say something like that. That means I'm probably hitting that boundary of too far. That's kind of it.
Fair
I
enough.
mean, it's a fun
Uh,
little show to sort of watch. You want to kill half an hour. You can turn on any episode, and it's not like a long running plot. It's just like, okay, cool.
well, then turning to the kitchen quickly,
Yep.
I've got two shows to talk about. First, Whites, which was a comedy on BBC, only ran one season in 2010, but when I was the sous chef at the Mariposa, so a very fine dining restaurant, there's one scene in particular that was probably the most quoted piece of media in that kitchen, and that is the eggless omelet scene from White's. And I will link to that because essentially the server, completely clueless, comes into the kitchen, is like, "Oh, the guest wants an eggless omelet," and the chef grabs a plate, sprinkles some parsley on it. There's your eggless omelet, and the server grabs it and says, "Okay," it's just like, no, yeah. It's just it is so just everything we have to deal with in the kitchen, it hits it. I cannot recommend it more. It is both funny and well acted. Again, I'm a little sorry it didn't get more than one season. I would love to see how they developed it.
I was going to say, going into real life, I've been playing kitchen defense for almost 30 years. Okay, yeah, we
Sure.
we cannot do that.
No.
Can you
Nope.
ask the chef? Sure.
Sure. And you go back, you make a pass through the kitchen, you come back out and like, oh no, I'm sorry, he can't. Yeah. Yep.
And then, of course, the killer right now, the bear.
The bear.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's no way to talk about TV shows without talking about the bear. And here I will admit I don't have Hulu. I have never actually seen the whole thing, but I've seen a whole bunch of clips and I've had people say, "Oh, you got to watch this." And I am aware that episode 7 of this past season, they did the entire episode as a one shot, which that's really cool because it really
Yeah.
does add to the chaos. But really the cinematography is great, the way it's shot is great, the people are all like they're developed well. I have worked with all of these cooks before. I know the manager. One of the things that even in the bulk of my chefing career, I've been complaining about, hey, where's the kind of reality show, or not the reality show, but the drama of the restaurant world, because there's always drama, there's always chaos, there's often confusion. And here it is. And I think they did it well. And one of the things that I love about it is really there are no hand models in it. All of the cooking is done by the actual actors who had to learn how to cook like that, how to cut correctly.
I haven't seen it for a minute, so I was watching one last night after work and stuff, and it's got that kitchen intensity as well. Like
Yes.
when you go back and the kitchen's you're busy and the kitchen's working and you're from the front of the house, you go back, you don't interrupt. You wait until you get an attention of either the cook you need to talk to on a specific station or the chef, and you usually don't want to bother the chef, so it's like, hey man, I need this. Are you guys good? Okay, and then you kind of slink away and get out of their way.
And as I mentioned before, one of the things that the show does seem to do very well is portray the kind of layer upon layer of, okay, this issue is going on, and while you're working to resolve that, here's the next problem. And it, like, because it's not like that next one is going to wait until you are ready to deal with it. There it
Yeah,
is.
it's
And
not
that
it's not a to-do list.
is how it is. All of the deadlines in the kitchen are immediate. Everything is urgent, and it really does a fantastic job of portraying that. Um, and then, okay, yeah, the animated show that we really should talk about is Bob's Burgers. And
Absolutely.
again, yeah, like that. That's first of all, just I love the whole notion of every single episode they have a different special, and hey, that speaks to me. I've had to live that.
And I've done the same thing with drinks, where when I worked at Frida Bistro in Salt Lake, Wednesdays were Mojito Wednesdays, and I had to come up with 5 different mojitos every Wednesday.
Yep.
That's a
Oh,
lot of
geez.
mojitos because I worked there for like 2 years.
Dang.
And
That's a
yeah,
lot
and
of
I
mojitos.
want to see a list of all those burgers.
Oh yeah,
It's just got to be
I know.
compilation.
I mean, it's a couple of years old. It's
It's got to
at
be
this
out there.
point, but I know that they had released a cookbook. But again, that's several seasons old by now, and I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
maybe
I
they've
think it's probably
updated it
10 seasons,
released it.
12 seasons old at this point. I want to see the burgers. There's also the rental place next door in the opening credits has always got a different catchy name, and
Hmm.
the van that shows up to get rid of the rats always has a different catchy name.
Yep.
Um, and I
Yeah.
just again, you've got the regular customers and stuff, and they're trying really hard to do a really hard business, but that's just ancillary to the entire show. But it's always he's always cooking, he's always doing burgers, it's always something kind of food related for him, and it's just a fun show to watch. And had a great crossover with Archer.
Oh, sure,
The
sure.
the opening
Geez,
of
I forgot
season
about that.
3 called Fugue State when Archer has lost his mind, and they it starts out in Bob's Burgers, and the voice actor is the same person. What is it, Jay
Oh,
something Benjamin? But he's like, so he's voicing Bob, but it's drawn as Arthur. His wife is drawn in the Archer style and being voiced by the same character actor. They couldn't do any of the kids because, ironically enough, all of the voice actors for the kids actually are voice actors on Archer.
oh,
That's why
nuts.
that's why the
Yeah.
kids don't say a word in that scene. And like,
Oh, that's fun.
spies show up, Archer kills them, and his great parting line is like, and there's just dead people all over the restaurant bleeding, and he's like, oh, by the way, the health department's coming to borrow, so you need a lot more of the purple stuff, and then just kind of walks out the door.
Right.
Something else, just real quick, we might want to get into is like just the shorts that are just all over the internet, like the Huddy Bistro shorts and like the
Oh,
things you
sure.
hear in a restaurant short. And we should have broke for this, sorry. And I wanted to
No,
ask
no.
you specifically, since we're talking about shows, all the cooking competition shows, because I think you could sum those up rather quickly. How it's basically just pro competition chefs and not really stuff you see in a restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, it's a okay. As somebody who has entered a chili cook-off, sure, I'm down with getting together with a couple other talented chefs and creating some cool food. I'm definitely for that, but me personally, that is not the entertainment that I seek out. It is stressful to me. It is not relaxing. I have a friend who used to regularly send me the list of ingredients that for that day's chopped episode and ask what I would do with it. And I mean, sure, I like the idea of those and sometimes yes, I do get, "Oh, hey, I had never thought of that. Maybe I should try that." But again, it's just that's not my go-to entertainment. I mean,
No,
and in fact, a lot of these chefs that I know also kind of don't watch that mostly because it really it's too easy to put yourself in that scenario and again, it just becomes stressful. It's not relaxing.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing about The Bear. Is I didn't watch it for a long time. You should need to watch this, and I'm like, I do this every day.
Yep.
That's like, hey, you're a lawyer. You should watch Law and Order.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
It's like, well, yeah,
oh, you're a firefighter. Watch. You're a sheriff. Watch Reno 911. No,
sure.
I'm the same way on the cooking shows and stuff I'm watching. I still can't believe that no one on Hell's Kitchen can cook scallops or pork.
Yeah, right. Or you know what? Honestly, risotto. Like if you're going to go on Iron Chef or Chopped or whatever, figure out your risotto. It should you take the mold off and it should stand. I mean it
I
but
know
yeah,
when you guys watch it, because I remember you and some other chefs were down, and it was on when I was working at Lindsay O'Michael's, and you were all just critiquing everything everyone was doing, and I'm like,
yeah.
wow, this has got to be
I
great.
I will say the one competition show that is broadly popular that I have nothing but respect for is the Great British Bake Off because it is so supportive. It's not a we're out to get you. It's not the stereotypical American cooking competition where, okay, well, today's secret ingredient is squid ink, and we just released 3 rabid raccoons into the kitchen. You have 30 seconds. Go. Um, it's oh, what lovely figure. Oh, look at that. That looks fantastic. And even sometimes when the bakers don't nail it, when they don't hit it as well as they expect,
Hmm.
it's still, well, okay, that's what lesson did we learn? How are we going to do this different? It's not like, wow, you suck. Go
Yeah.
back to your hole and never show your face again. I understand it is entertaining for a lot of people, but
Oh,
it's not what I choose in my spare time.
my brother loves watching cooking shows and stuff, and he also loves to cook. Like he'll watch a cooking show and then go walk in the kitchen and make that.
Sure.
I mean,
Oh, sure.
but
Well,
I love watching the Alton Brown show just for the sheer fact that
sure.
he sets this stuff up and tries to make it hard for these cooks, and then he's standing there just going like, if any of these people get off their high horse and just use a microwave, they'd be done in 5 minutes.
Well, I'm sitting here
That's
on
what
my high horse not owning a microwave, so sure. I even find, well, Uncle Roger very entertaining, even if it is just his reaction videos of other people making fried rice. Like some of it is just really great. And in fact, maybe we should have a show talking about YouTube cooking.
yeah.
But we are getting long in
Yeah.
the episode here, so let's move on to our last portion of the episode, to our weekly restaurant shout outs. And today I'm going to shout out a food truck here in Carson City, Panini Power. Shout out to Mama Bear. They have another food truck that's like a smoothie thing, and then it kind of transitioned into this, but they do it well. It was a caprese panini that I had. Well, okay, 2 weeks ago I did like a 12-mile hike up in the mountains, and as I came back down, there was their truck, and it was exactly what I wanted, and everything tasted perfect. And maybe it was because I had just burned 3,000 calories, but everything was just great, and I've never really had a disappointing thing that they've had.
I'm going to give a shout out to a restaurant that I haven't gone to yet because I'm going to go there today or tomorrow, and I know you're very familiar with this one because this one just opened in Little Italy and it's called Portillo's.
Yay. Yeah, the
Yay!
potatoes.
I'm hoping
There's so
for a
much
nice
on that
Italian
menu,
beef
right?
sandwich later today.
Yes. And at some point, get a Chicago dog, though that doesn't have to
Oh,
be
I
your
will.
first thing there.
Yeah.
Though, actually, the chicken croissant sandwich is really quite good too.
All right.
There's not much on that menu that I turn my nose up at. But
I'm
anyway,
just I'm just
well,
stoked
that's
there's
cool.
finally one out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think still my closest one to me is probably Phoenix, but I might be wrong. Well, that will be it for us this week then. I have been Josh Hobson. That is Nick Parkin. Our music was made by Andrew Smith. Deneen Oliver handles our social media and internet issues. And we will be back next week with, I think I have a special guest that's going to join us actually the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to that. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed this, drop us a like. If you really liked it, subscribe. And if you actually want to support us, I will include the link to the Buy Me a Coffee account down below. I'm in the process of starting a Patreon that will get there soon because we like to do this and it would be great to get some direct support. So
Yeah.
thank you and join us again next week.